It's going to keep doing that thing where it kicks me out times before we actually get going properly, and I don't know how to fix that because I have to do everything on my phone now, and that's a weird time. Welcome to the van, everybody. I am in a little annex, as you can see the funny screen behind me, and there's a nice little field for you guys to look at, so I hope that is fun for you all. I start with the basics. Hi everyone, welcome to the Book Bunch. My name is Sam. It is so great to have you here. Again, apologies that things are still in this weird phase for me. Honestly, I don't know how soon I can get things back up and running as normal. We actually might be moving out of the van in the next 6 months or so. So if that actually does happen, things will go back to normal because I'll have access to a computer and Wi-Fi and normal things to make recording videos and doing stuff like I used to possible. But until then, we will probably have to do this weird live format, and you'll just have to rewatch the recordings if you miss out. I am really sorry. It is honestly the best I can do. I'm struggling real hard over here, and I just still want to get something out for you and still be connected with you guys because I love you guys. I miss you guys. I miss doing something regular. I miss doing something for myself. And yes, so I have read some books on my Kindle recently. I had been struggling to read for the first many months of my daughter Olive being born. This first half of the year has just been crazy. So many things. Anyway, and so I would sometimes pick up a physical book, but I honestly didn't feel like touching the Kindle. And I didn't even really feel like reading at all. And then after getting into more of a regular rhythm, I felt it harder to read the physical copies. And so now I was like, oh wait, I have a Kindle, why don't I use it? So here we are. It also makes doing this easier because I can actually look at it and tell you guys what I've read rather than trying to look at it on my phone and remember it and then miss a bunch of things. So you will also have to forgive me because can I remember a lot of the details about some of these books? I'm going to be honest, there's some that I cannot remember, like names of characters and basic things. But you guys are smart. If you look it up, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and I can still give you an overview of the story, and that is the main thing. I did try to keep it as fantasy orientated as possible, but I got a little bit bored and read a couple of other things that were unrelated. So you'll have to put up with me sharing those for you as well. And my baby is asleep, so if she wakes up, it will have to be a swift goodbye. If I haven't already finished the video by then, sorry guys. But that's where we are at in motherhood at the moment and reading, coming at you for realsies. Okay, so the first one is All Battles End at Sunset. This was a book sent to me by an author actually. He is an indie writer, so please go give him some love. His name is Jared Acuna. Woo, Chantel, yes! Thank you for making it live. I have missed you so much. But anyway, yes, so All Battles End at Sunset. It actually was kind of good. I can't tell if it's meant to be older middle grade or a little bit younger young adult. But it is following a 14-year-old boy orphan who, it's partly historical as well, which is kind of cool. That is set in, I want to say it's the 1400s, but like I said, details are not my friend at the moment. And it's when John Calvin kind of presented his case and Calvinism became a thing, and other versions of Catholicism started to exist, but the Catholics weren't happy about that, and so they unfortunately got a bit fierce. And it's, yeah, from the eyes of this orphan boy who lives in France. He ends up, like, he is a Catholic, but he ends up becoming friends with the Huguenots. I think that's how you say that word. I could be so wrong. But bear with me. Anyway, they're like non-Catholic Christians. And he becomes friends with them, is like basically adopted by them. And they have to flee for their lives over to Florida, because they're hoping to like set up this haven for Christians, away from persecution. Things don't go to plan, and the Spaniards kind of attack them and all the rest of it. So that is All Battles End at Sunset. It is really interestingly written. I can see how, like, I enjoyed it, but I can also see how it's clearly tailored to boys. It's got a very coming of age style narrative, and it is like very heavy on like the Christian stuff, obviously, and him having to navigate like, how does he feel about Jesus? Will he put his life on the line for Jesus? That kind of thing. So yeah, super interesting. Had some great themes. It can get a little bit violent and detailed, which is why I'm like, I don't know if this is actually meant to be middle grade or not. So if you're going to share it with your kids, maybe either proofread it first to check you're okay with it, or read it along with them. Just because obviously I don't know how you guys all feel about violence. But that is the best explanation I can kind of give you. I then had a DNF, For Whom the Sun Sings. I struggled to read this mostly because of the names and different things in the book. It was just so hard for me to read that I ultimately just stopped. So I can't really give you much on that book. But there was nothing that I read. I didn't finish it, obviously, but the part that I did read, there was nothing wrong with in terms of like my morals or any of that kind of thing. So if you want to see how you go with it and see how you go, try For Whom the Sun Sings. But I can't vouch for the whole book or anything like that. So go as you wish. I read Winter's Maiden by Morgan L. Bussey, which was sent to me as an art copy like at the start of this year, and I just did not get to because of all the crazy, and I'm so sorry that happened, because I was meant to be on Street Team and I was meant to like be posting and promoting and all the rest of it, and I just fell off the wagon, so I'm really sorry about that. But Winter's Maiden, I read it. I don't think it is her best work. I'm going to be clear about that. It was still a good read, still worth your time, but it was definitely not my favorite of hers. Winter's Maiden, golly, can I even remember what it was about now? It was like 3 weeks ago that I read it, so my brain's like not keeping up. But we follow, hang on, I'll bring it up on my thing so I can tell you. Yeah, so this one was about, sorry, it took me a second, but I just remembered. I have read, Chantal, to answer your question, feel free to interrupt. I have read, I think it was Tainted and Awakened. I've read one of her duologies, one of her steampunk ones. I didn't love it. Which is fine. Like, I still recommend it, but I just didn't love it. So let me know how you felt about it. But yes, I liked the steampunky aspect and stuff, but I feel like just storytelling wise, it missed the mark a little bit. Like the actual writing, I felt was a bit subpar for her, and that's like, I feel so bad saying that because I really like her as a writer. But yeah, in that series, I don't think it hit the mark quite the same. And I felt the same way about Winter's Maiden. Yeah. Well, see. Yeah. I think if you are like starting into fantasy or are of a younger audience, a lot of Morgan L. Bussey stuff is really good because this is going to sound terrible and I don't mean it to, but it's more like base level. Whereas like I'm obviously used to reading some very intricate, some very, very developed writing. Like Brandon Sanderson, for example, where his stuff is just so incredibly fleshed out. Like, I don't even know how it's possible for someone to write like that. So my view on good writing and bad writing in terms of fantasy stuff is probably a bit skewed, to be fair. So it's not that it's bad or not worth your time. It's just like in terms of standard of possible fantasy writing, it's not up there, is what I'm trying to say. But it's definitely like still worth it. And I felt the same way about this one. So it took me a second to jog my memory. But with Winter's Maiden, it is about this girl who my Kindle's doing weird things. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's about this girl who she. I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible. Her parents, her mum died at birth, and the dad was from like a different clan because it's like very clan based. It's meant to be Viking themed, so it's heavy on the clan stuff. Was from a different clan, from a different land, and you don't know much about him, but he like comes in and he says like, look, if it was a boy I would have kept it, but since not, don't care, and he leaves. So he abandons her as a like baby, like fresh baby. And so the midwife is like, what am I going to do with this baby? And she never managed to have kids. She's like an older lady. She ends up adopting this baby who becomes our main character. And she is what's called clanless, which is like very shunned upon. But she ends up finding out she has this weird power thing, where when she fights, she like goes into almost this blind rage and like can do superhuman things. And she's also struggling with like her faith and stuff. So there's this interesting morality struggle throughout the thing, where often the wrong choices are picked. And then there ends up being this war on a larger scale because there's some different perspectives in there as well, between these 4 clans that make up one nation. 5 clans, and then these other nations, and basically like other beings get involved. Some are meant to represent some kind of angel figure, and some are meant to represent some kind of demonic figure, from sort of what I understand. It's a little bit confusing. And they all have powers. And basically like there's the good powers, right? But if they become self-centered and they turn away from God, then their powers become tainted and like have this opposite effect, and it is like really bad. And yeah, there's this whole power struggle situation going on. I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to spoil the whole thing, and I feel like I might give spoilers if I continue to explain it. But it's very interesting, has very interesting concepts. The writing for me just wasn't quite as flowy as I've read, like as some of her other books have been, but it was still good. Then there was The Light of Eden, which I finally read. That book, I see why they say is adult, so keep that in mind. But The Light of Eden, again, Christian fantasy, has a very interesting morality struggle. Definitely highlights sin, some very specific sins. So definitely read it. If definitely don't let your kids read it, is what I would say. But again, you do you. But I would say it's unclean, but because it has that Christian undertone, there's like a redemptive factor. So like, if you're over 18, you can make the judgment call, if that makes sense. And like, you can know like, oh yes, he's deliberately choosing bad things, but he does get redeemed in the end. So yes, it falls in the same category for me as like redeeming love. Like, there's clearly immorality stuff in there, but there is a redeeming overarching story. So yes, I hope I explained that well. But The Light of Eden is by Karen Hancock. She wrote this book ages ago, actually, and she's written quite a number of things since. She's a new author to me, though. I think I've only read one of her other things. And I was keen to read this one. I did really like it. It's more of a longer paced fantasy, and it's like, I can't remember if it's a duology or a trilogy. So there is more going. It's like set as like an epic style, old school type fantasy. But it was interesting. It's very like kingdoms clashing, but there's like also demonic forces at play, but there's also like gladiator style stuff. I feel like guys would really be into that, but I mean, I liked it, so girls can too. But yes, it's very like clash of the sword, clash of the mind, heart, gritty, war, that kind of thing. It was written very well, but like I said, some of the things I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't realize we were going here. And yes, but it's basically about this guy who is like, what bird is squawking at me right now? It's about this guy who, he is like a prince in line to the throne, but like very far down to the throne. And he decides he doesn't want to be a prince because his like family name is like known for their bloodlust, and he's like, I don't want that. I want to go join the church. So he becomes like a monk for the church. Turns out the church is like corrupt and terrible and bad and misleading. And so his like whole faith that he's dedicated his life to, his trust, his everything is like shattered. And he ends up actually getting sold as a slave by one of his brothers to this other nation that is also super corrupt. And he has to join these gladiator battles to like fight for the death. And I don't know if he ever actually can earn his freedom, or if it's just he earns better standing. I can't quite remember what the setup was. But he ends up like drawing the eye of really bad forces and like getting caught up in this big prophecy and all these different things. But he also doesn't want anything to do with it because he's been so hurt by religion. But along this journey, he makes this one friend who is kind of like holds space for him and holds the light for him. And it's really interesting. There's some really interesting dynamics. Like I say, there's like a real tug in this. I am interested in reading the next book to see what happens, because yeah, like, you're nowhere near finished the story at the end of this one. You're just kind of finished the first act, if you get my meaning. But yes, I did like it. It was very gritty. I don't know when I will get to read the next one, though. I don't even have the next book, so when I get there, I'll get there. But I would recommend it. Then I read What else did I read? I keep looking at this unfiltered and it's throwing me off. Because then I'm like, wait, what did I read? Okay, and then I read The Blue Tower, which was weird, and I don't think I will read the rest of the books. There's 5 of them. If there were less, I might give it a go, but I just don't think I can commit to this series. It is like very middle grade-y type age group, which is probably why I struggled with it, because I'm just not the intended audience. It was a bit too like kid friendly for me, if that makes sense. Like it's clearly younger. It's meant to be a Christian take on like what's that series? No, my brain's lost me. There's a series that I read ages ago that was secular where I thought I recommended it and then like it turned out to be unclean like 2 or 3 books in. But it was about like this tower and it was magic and these students lived in this tower and had to go through these trials to like graduate and be free and whatever. If you remember what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's very like Harry Potter-esque, very even like Vivid and that series where it's like school students who are in this weird format to like progress. They have to do all these challenges and there's magic involved. But yeah, this one has a Christian aspect. It's actually set in the, is it purgatory? I don't know. That realm that some people believe in where it's like you've lived your life, you've died, you're now being refined or like sanctified or whatever some people believe before you like make it to heaven, essentially. I think it's meant to be based on the verses about like he will look over you and like send through the refining fire and like things will get burned away, like the chaff will get burned away. So it's based on that concept. Again, it's fantasy, so like take it as you will. But it's all of these people who have died who did end up choosing God become kids again and have their memories wiped, and they have to like do these different things to progress. And as they progress, they gain knowledge of their like previous life and what they did on Earth in such a way that it's meant to design to heal them and bring about healing for them and highlight their sins and like why it was important to choose God and God restoring them and all of that stuff. It was weird. It was weird. I'm not gonna lie, it was weird. I honestly can't say if I recommend it or not just because it was so weird and so young. So yeah, if you like the sound of that, you're interested, feel free to give it a look at. But that was The Blue Tower. That was by J.D. Simmons. I haven't heard of any other J.D. Simmons stuff, so if you have, let me know. Then I read King Arthur and Her Knights. Thank you, Celestia, for bringing this to my attention. It was amazing. 10 out of 10, million out of 10. It's like, it's that cheesy fanfic type stuff, but done in a really good way that's incredibly like, I need to read the whole thing in a night. Which is bad for you, so pace yourselves, guys, because it's like 900 pages. But anyway, it was really good. It was really, really good. It's a silly concept, but again, it's cheesy and entertaining. And hang on. Haha. I like. Who was what one by? Sorry, Chantal. I missed your thing. Oh, the King Arthur and Her Knights. Okay. K.M. Shear. It's ebook only. And like yeah. So yeah, King Arthur and Her Knights. Celestia got me onto this. It was in one of her videos ages ago, and I had it like sitting there waiting and just never got to it. And I finally did, and I was just like smashed it out. But yeah, it's like, it's definitely not the best writing in the world. It's definitely not even the best like story concept, but like I said, it's addictive. So like read it. It was completely clean as well, which was nice. But yeah, it's basically this girl from our century doesn't really care much about medieval stuff, but she's on a trip to England because she's from the US. She's on a trip to England with her friends. They're like all into Instagram and all the rest of it. And they go to get like a photo with the sword. And she's not even interested, but they like convince her to try and pull it out. She pulls it out and gets transported back to King Arthur's time. And Merlin turns out is this young guy who pretends to be old because people won't listen to him unless he's wise. And he's like, oh my goodness, thank you, it worked. Here's the rundown. No, I can't ever send you back. 2, you're obviously pure of heart because you could pull it out. 3, I need you to pretend to be King Arthur even though you're a girl, because King Arthur, just before he was meant to become king, ran away. He ran off with a girl. And she's like, what? And so she thinks it's some kind of weird dream. So she's like, fine, I'll play along. Like, eventually I will wake up. Because what else am I going to do? And so she plays along. She pretends to be King Arthur. She pretends to be a boy. So, like, except for, like, a very core group of people, like, there's, like, 4 of them, I think, that know that she is a girl. All the rest of her knights and all the rest of the kingdom think that she is a guy. And she basically goes on all these King Arthur adventures with her knights and, like, does a lot of growing and learning, and eventually realizes, hey, I'm not waking up. Turns out Merlin was right and it is real. She has a crisis, obviously, because she's like, I miss my family, I miss my friends, I want to go back, and has to grieve that. But because she actually, it's quite funny, in the century she's from, she, like, as her hobby, does fencing classes, so she can use a sword. But in King Arthur's time, that's, like, the best swordsmanship known to man, because, like, yeah, they're very crude in their use of the sword and stuff. And so they all think that she is just absolutely wonderful, this wonderful king, all the rest of it, very skilled fighter, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's very funny. It's very good. There's a bit of romance, which was amazing. I don't normally love romance, but this did it for me. I liked it. I liked it. It was cute. But yes, it's very good. It's also funny because, like, she has limited knowledge about what happened to King Arthur, like what happened with Lancelot and Guinevere and stuff. And so she hates them, like, from the get-go, even though it's not even possible for the same outcome to happen because she's not a guy. She's not King Arthur. Like, she's not going to marry Guinevere. But it's really funny, and I'm so glad that someone has actually highlighted the fact that, like, that whole affair situation that happened historically, like, between King Arthur, Lancelot, and Guinevere, is such a dog move. Like, everyone's always like, oh, Lancelot, he's so amazing, and, like, oh, King Arthur and Guinevere, like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that ended tragically and horribly. And, like, his best friend did him the dirty, and so did his wife. Like, anyway. So I'm glad that someone highlights that. But yes, go read it. It's amazing. I loved it. Could not recommend it more. I'm kind of interested to see what other work she has and if it's any good, because I have no idea. There's no like Christian themes or whatever. It is secular from what I understand. But it is like clean and good. So there you go. Then a couple of yeah, it's good, Chantal. You've got to read it. I mean, if me and Celestia say it's good, then it's obviously amazing. Cool. Then I had a couple of others that were not fantasy, but I still recommend. You can hear the baby stirring, so I'll have to be quick. So there was It Ain't Over, which is a sci-fi by Robert M. Kearns. I loved this. I need to get the rest of them. It was clean. I don't think it was Christian, but it was clean. It is about, it's like, okay, if you like the show Firefly, but you want like a clean version of Firefly, that's what this book was. It was so good. Super good sci-fi, like space sci-fi. It's about this guy who has this ship, and the ship turns out to be this sentient ship from like millions of years ago or hundreds of millions of years ago. I don't know. From ages ago, from this like dead ancient civilization. And he was the ship was abandoned because he became sentient. And this guy, this bounty hunter type guy, finds this ship, and they become best buddies. And they go on this mission to basically like save disadvantaged people. And like, it's just amazing. I loved it. It was so good. I loved every second of it. I definitely will read the rest of the series. I really hope that the rest of the series is clean, because it was super good. But yes, if you like sci-fi, definitely add it to your read list. Loved it. Loved it. It also reminded me a little bit of Skyward, because there's like obviously the sentient ship and then the character, like the main character, and then there's a bit of banter. It's good. So go read it. And then I read two that were well outside my comfort zone, but were recommended by you guys over the last 3 years. I can't even remember when people recommended this, but it was ages ago, or even who. But I read The Unexpected Mrs. Polifax. That was super fun. I liked it. It was a break from my usual. But it was about this old lady named Mrs. Halifax, who is like, she's at the end of her life. She's got really no one in her life. And she's just bored. Like, she's just like, oh, I'm ready to die because, like, I'm bored. Like, there's nothing for me anymore. And then I can't remember why she does it. I think she's like talking to her doctor or whatever, and her doctor's like, just go do whatever you had always dreamed of doing. And so she's like, okay, I'm gonna go be a spy. And she like walks into the CIA, and I think it's the CIA, and she's like, I want to be a spy, like, let me volunteer as a spy. And somehow she gets mixed up with it. Like, she was meant to go home and they weren't going to take her seriously, but then somehow there was like a mix up, and she does get sent on a mission. Because they need a tourist, a non-spy tourist, to go to Mexico and like follow through some mission and just like bring back some parcel or something. And she's like, okay, I'll go do it. So she does that, but then things obviously go horribly wrong. And she has to get rescued. Or, well, she kind of has to rescue herself, let's be honest. But yes, it was really good. It took so many surprising turns, but I did like it. I don't know if I would continue reading the series just because it is outside of my genre, but it was nice to break it up with. If you like crime type stories and that are a bit funny, you'll probably like it. It did give me similar vibes to Thursday Murder Club in terms of like that kind of lighthearted crime. In terms of like character conversation. It was clean. There was a little bit of violence though, so I'd probably only read it if you are like mature age. Yeah, and then finally I read Dear Henry, Love Edith. I read this last night and I couldn't put it down. Again, guys, I'm standing by it. I'm not normally a romance person. I don't normally gravitate that way. But everyone has told me to read it because it was like more of it was like a comedy romance. And I'm a girl. What girl doesn't like the occasional rom-com, okay? Guys, gosh, give me a break. Anyway, and it was real cute. I did like it. I really liked it. I loved the concept. I was even explaining it to my husband last night, and I was like, this is the book that I'm reading. What do you think? And he thought it was a bit funny too. But yeah, it's basically about this lady named Edith, and she is a widow who used to be a nurse but has kind of like stopped working. She wants to go do some volunteer work before she goes overseas to do further volunteer mission work stuff. So she moves to this like small town, and this she's meant to stay with this in this apartment of this girl that she is in contact with. But she can't stay at the girl's apartment because the girl's apartment like floods or something like when she's meant to arrive. So the girl's like, hey, I have this uncle who lives in town. He's not like around much. He shouldn't bother you much, but his place is free if you want to like share the house with him. Like you would have the top floor, he'd have the bottom floor because he's like hurt his leg and he can't use the stairs. And she's like, okay. So Edith like moves in with this guy temporarily and like does her volunteer work. And the guy that lives there, Henry, he is like going through some stuff because obviously he's hurt his leg and it's like affecting him. And yeah, they start writing letters to each other on the counter, like the kitchen counter, because their schedules are so like whack that they keep just passing each other and they don't actually ever meet for the first little while, and they have no idea what each other's look like or anything much about each other. So they've just been writing each other notes to be like, hey, there's ice cream in the freezer if you want some. Hey, I've got this work schedule, blah, 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 blah. And then they start like telling each other about their lives and about themselves. And the funny thing is that they both think that the other person is old when that's not the case. And then there's like this whole debacle where they have to like start helping each other and things go from there. But it's very funny. It's very good. I really liked it. I kind of wish that the first bit was longer in terms of the exchanging letters, because that was fun. Like I feel like, yeah, that could have gone on for more of the story than it did. But if there's more of those books or more from that author that are similar, I might give it a go. But yes, it was funny. It was cute. I liked it. So if you like romance or you're willing to give it a go like I did, it's a good place to start. So that is everything for today, guys. I would love to stay longer and chat, but the baby is hungry and then I need to go feed her. So I will do that now, and I will try to get another live happening in the next month or so. I think I'll try and thank you for staying, Chantel. I appreciate it. I will try to keep doing the same thing where I just kind of read a bunch of books and then update you guys as best I can. At the very least, I want to try and update you guys on the community page a bit more, so keep an eye out for my posts. But yes, thank you for your grace and your kindness in this weird season of my life. 2024 has been one for the ages. But yes, I love you guys. God bless. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.